Goes is now we're live. And so I'm here with Ryan Provencher from Firefighter Peak Performance, my personal nutrition and fitness coach for the last, it depends how you want to count it. If you want to count it as 8 weeks or 10 weeks, depending on that, we kind of took a little bit of a deload in the middle, but we're technically 10 weeks in, but we're really 8 weeks of programming in. And so we're kind of bouncing into finishing up our first week of phase 2. I just did my most recent in-body this morning, and we're here to I haven't reviewed. He sent me my information. I haven't reviewed it because I want to have a conversation live with him here. And then we're going to talk about what's been going well, what the program is. And now, as we headed this thing off from the jump, it was a lot of, this is what it will be like. And now we've been doing it for a couple months, and now we can actually say what it has been like, what we've learned, and what we plan to do for the next 8 weeks as we continue. So welcome, Ryan, to the show. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks. Yeah, it's great to see you, Jake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we've been doing full disclosure. Me and Ryan talk just about every day. And, we've also had, almost weekly, if not maybe actually every week or every other week, we meet and talk for, 20, 30 minutes about what's going on with the program, what we can improve. But this is going to be a little bit more of a recap in totality for the first 8 weeks of the program and kind of what we're looking at for the second half of it. But it's been a lot. It's going well. I will preview the fact that my results today were, I was disappointed by them, but I know that that's not a reflection of the program. It's just a matter of the fact that we've been going at it for 8 weeks, and we have to pull the levers, as you say.
Yes.
Let's get into it. What do we know after 8 weeks of me doing the Firefighter Peak Performance program?
Yeah. So I think we can look at this in a couple of different ways. One is, what's the framework, the deliverables, or what have I asked you to do? And then the second part of that is how have you taken that and actually applied it in real life? And then what's the measurable outcome of that? And so as I reflect on measurable outcome, and one of the things I really appreciate about you is you're very committed. And one of the things we kind of talk about, and I've heard you talk about specifically, is, hey, firefighters operate in extremes at times. Like if I'm doing something, I'm all in on that. And knowing you the way I do, that's just how you approach things. And you're not going to half-ass it. You're going to go all in and give it your all. And man, throughout this whole program, no matter what I've asked of you, you've done an amazing job of really understanding the key themes, whether it's, how you manage intensity, how you prioritize protein in your nutrition, and no matter what life has thrown at you, you've done an amazing job of adapting to it. And that's that at the end of the day, and we'll get into some details here and some numbers and some outcomes, but man, that for firefighters, we just have to be able to do that. We have to be able to, in my opinion, have something that provides structure for us so that we can apply something in a way that's progressive and measurable, and we can really have a roadmap to get to where we're going. But it has to be adaptable to shift work, and it has to be adaptable to life. So in summary, if we're at your midterm, and correct me if your numbers see different, but man, you're down about 19 pounds. I think you've lost about 7% body fat overall. I know you really look at lean body mass and where we're at with that, and we've talked about body recomposition also. Yeah. So what is common more often than not is when you see dramatic weight loss of any kind, and not that this is dramatic per se, but when you see significant weight loss, it's very, very difficult to preserve and even more difficult to gain lean body mass. And when we first talked, we really wanted to thread the needle on optimizing that. And so we are using in-body scanning as kind of the body comp measurement tool. It is important to note that is bioelectrical impedance. It's not pinpoint accurate. There are some external variables that can affect the numbers that you see. But for me, looking over an 8-week period of time, looking at the trend that has been able to show us, I think it's outstanding. I think you've done an amazing job of sticking very close to your body recomposition goals, and to your credit, and in my observation, it's because of the way that you've been able to be consistent, even if not perfect, no matter what's happening at work, what's happening at home, you're traveling, So that's my, in a nutshell, observation of how you've applied the framework of the program, how you've been adaptable, and then I think the objective numbers really speak for themselves. And that's not even getting into your performance measurement in your Firefighter Tactical Fitness Assessment, where you've also seen significant gains in performance.
Mm-hmm. And so let's hammer in on one point that you bring there. There's a ton of things to talk about inside that, but one of the things is that adaptability. And this is a thing that I started out as questions. Hey, Ryan, would it be okay if I did this and this? And then you're like, aha, you're doing exactly the thing that I want you to do.
Yes.
And so for sake of reference, like you kind of build me out this, like, this is what your next 4 weeks looks like. And these are the days, and these are your shift work days. Like, these are the days you're going to be at work. These are the days you're going to be off. We're going to build your recovery days and your cardiovascular days and your strength training days around that whole schedule. But life happens, and sometimes you go to a house fire in the middle of the night, and sometimes you run 6 calls after midnight, and sometimes you have to go to your daughter's softball game for 8 hours, right? And it doesn't work to fit that programming in the way that you want. And no matter how strictly you want to follow it, sometimes it's easy for a person to go, throw your hands up and call it a day.
Yeah.
And so talk to me about your thought process in having a structure, but then always being willing to divert if necessary.
Yeah. So the way, just in real general terms, and this could apply to any fitness program, really, you've got the program, which is the big roadmap, let's just say 12 weeks, in our case, 16 weeks. And in each program, maybe you have multiple phases. So in our case, we have 3 very specific training phases. And within each phase, there's a training cycle. And ideally, the training cycle captures all of the kind of the attributes that firefighters need. So for us, you and I know that you've got in each training cycle a couple of moderate intensity training sessions. You've got a couple of intentional active recovery sessions. You've got a couple of zone 2 aerobic training and flexibility sessions. And then once per training cycle, at the end of it, you've got a high intensity workout that kind of caps that training cycle. And for firefighters, this is where I think it really works well and it's applicable. I'm not talking about a 7-day week. I'm talking about a 9-day training cycle that captures your shift cycle. Ideally, in your case, your shift cycles kind of vary from month to month. Mm-hmm. And that's why each of your training cycles looks a little bit different based on that, because we really do program around your shifts so that we're accounting for your total training load.
Mm-hmm. And so when you think about these measurables, I think that like one of the things that was an unlock for me, and we'll maybe get in the weeds, but that's okay, right? When we think about like the tactical fitness assessment. So basically the measurables in terms of work output, we really put on this scale, which is called the Firefighter Tactical Fitness Assessment. It's a series of exercises that Ryan kind of has cobbled together to mimic fireground activities, from pulling a line to dragging a body to all the things that you might do, pulling ceiling, stuff like that. And so the goal is to decrease time while increasing load. And ultimately, this was an unlock for me in the idea that was like, well, I can always, like, I'm competitive as anyone could possibly be. And so I'm like, how do I get this time down as far as possible? Well, the reality is you could lower the weights and you could decrease the time to almost nothing, but you're not actually accomplishing much. So the goal in all reality, and he explained this to me as my time dropped, is that you actually want to do the most amount of work you can possibly do inside of that work window, which is roughly 20 minutes, which equates to the lifespan of an SCBA bottle, roughly.
Yep.
So this was a huge unlock for me to go, oh, okay. So now I'm actually, I take my baseline Firefighter Tactical Fitness Assessment, and then I say, okay, first step, get down to 20 minutes. Second step, add as much weight as I can humanly add and stay under 20 minutes. And that's kind of the goal of the program. And so walk me through that fitness assessment, what your thought process was in creating it, and then what's your goal in terms of watching someone progress through a training cycle inside of that.
Yeah. And so the first thing is, and I think this is really important, for firefighters, I really encourage firefighters to exercises based on movement patterns and not muscle groups. So you could do, and I'm not saying it's not right to measure strength, let's just say, or endurance. You could do a max bench press, you could do a max deadlift, you could do even aerobic capacity on a treadmill. So there's all these ways that we can measure physical fitness, strength, attributes, whatever the case may be. In fact, not to go down this rabbit hole, but in my opinion, the IFC Wellness Fitness Initiative has an excellent general fitness assessment where they capture aerobic capacity, muscular strength and endurance, some basic mobility stuff. So, and that's awesome. What I needed for my clients and for firefighters specifically was to have something, and you described it as, I want an objective way to measure their work capacity as firefighters. And in order for me to do that, I had to replicate what we actually do as firefighters. So all 6 of these exercises are based on different movement patterns that firefighters experience on the fire ground. The shoulder loaded walking lunge is the lunge movement pattern. The squat obviously captures the squat. We'd have pushing, pulling, rotation, like all these things. And beyond that, even trying to apply it to specific firefighting skills. And then, so we've captured that. And then we want to also kind of tap into the energy systems that firefighters use in firefighting. And to me, the 4-time training evolution gives you as the athlete the flexibility to, do you need to take a quick break and kind of recover and then get going? Can you start at one level of weight, and we can talk in more detail about that, level 1, level 2, level 3, and then maybe drop down a level to continue working. And then at the end, you have an objective time that you can measure your total reps. You can measure the sum of the low weight that you use for each exercise, and you can see the time it took you to complete that work, all of which is objective in measuring that in terms of your progress over time.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things you kind of alluded to there that's been a really big unlock for me as well has been this idea of riding my energy like a wave.
Yes.
Like this is the thing that Ryan preaches to me all the time, which is this idea that, we want to be in tune with our body. This is why when we do our documentation, there's so many things that we're rating. We're rating our movement. We're rating our intensity. We're rating our focus. And it's because we want to be in tune with our bodies so that we can ride that wave. We want to say, oh, I'm too overexerted right now. If I just take my foot off the gas a little bit, I can continue to work despite the fact that I am not going to redline because I'm in control. So can you kind of talk to me through that process and that concept?
Yeah. And so for me, this is where we really start separating firefighter tactical fitness from fitness assigned to firefighters. It really is meant to be very specific to the work that we do. So if you imagine a race car driver going 200 miles an hour on the straightaway, when they make that turn, they want to slow down just enough to safely make the turn without compromising their position in the race. And so if you think about the fires you've been on or the emergency scenes you've been on, you want to operate at the highest of your potential while also being in full control, moving your body in a way that's safe and you're not going to get hurt. You're very effective and efficient in how you're doing things. And so that is exactly why when you look at your score sheet and you see your objective scoring metrics, which as we just talked about is your load and your weight and your repetitions and your time and your heart rate and all those things. But then I'm also trying to teach you to have this awareness in this environment that you're really pushing yourself to keep track of how well are you moving? Do you have any discomfort in your body? Cognitively, how intense does this feel for you in the gym? And how does that relate to what your watch is telling you for your heart rate? And then when you think about what in these high intensity environments, whether you're a police officer, military, firefighter, the things we start to lose at these high stress moments are cognitive function and fine motor skills. And so if I can get you to be thinking about all of these things in every single training session, and then encouraging you to, when you're on the drill ground or even on the fire ground, really starting to see how this applies to how you're pulling hose or deploying a ladder or pulling ceiling or whatever the case may be. And in my experience, and we see this a lot in Recruit Academy, that light comes on. Like people start connecting the dots like, oh, I see now why you taught me all this in the gym, and now I see how it improves my firefighting. And flow breathing is another one that you and I introduced in phase 2. That
Mm-hmm.
if that light hasn't come on yet, I'm excited to see when it does, because you'll hit that groove where you really, it just becomes automatic in all
Mm-hmm.
that you do, even outside the gym.
So I don't want to breeze over that. Let's bring people up to speed on flow breathing. This is a thing that I'm trying to integrate now. It's very, let's say, counterintuitive for a person that's spent, 34 years breathing a certain way, to like flip the script a little bit. When you do it properly, and I have done, and I do it in my workouts now, there is something that happens, and it does feel correct in the weirdest way, but it also is exactly the opposite of how you've breathed for the rest of your life, probably. So bring the audience up to speed on this.
Oh man. So I grew up a gym rat myself, and how much do you bench and how much do you squat, and what you learn, and just in simple terms, force breathing. So you're basically bracing your body, exhaling to brace your body as you exert force. So that might, for example, an overhead press, or a push or a pull, whatever the movement happens to be, the exhales on the exertion and on the bracing, in order to maximize the stability of your body as you're moving the load. Flow breathing is trying to get you to learn optimal biomechanics in your movement patterns as a step 1, and then exhaling anytime your body is in compression, and inhaling anytime your body is expanding. And what you start to experience when you tinker with that, and for those of you listening at home, a simple way to do this is get into your push-up position and exhale on the way down and inhale on the way up. And chances are that's the opposite of what you've ever done when you're doing your push-ups. And then get into a little bit of a rhythm of doing that, and start to feel how naturally your breath just flows through your body as you're executing these movements. So it doesn't come intuitively initially, but again, step 1, you master your biomechanics and your movement patterns. Then you apply this layer of flow breathing on top of that. And man, I'm here to tell you, and especially once you start getting that on the drill ground or in your firefighting, everything just, your efficiency is increased exponentially.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I want to hit on, which was an initial source of frustration, maybe I don't know if frustration is exactly the word. You're going to know exactly where I'm going with this, but then it has now become one of the things that I'm most interested in and most challenged by in my workouts, which is the documentations portion of it, right?
Yeah.
So like when Ryan first assigned me all this stuff, I was like, holy crap, I just picked up an office job, right? Like that's how, it's, everything you do is documented. And I remember early on, probably week 3, week 4, something like that, being like, good God, there's a lot of documentation. And he said, the documentation is part of the workout. And then I was like, light bulb moment of like, oh, when we're thinking about the cognitive function, what better test can I do than go and do a high intensity workout and then all of a sudden have to do basic math? And all of a sudden you realize just how much deficiencies you have. And you're looking at like 25 plus 32 and you're like, oh my God. Like how on earth can I not just do this in the blink of an eye?
Yeah.
And you go, oh man. But then as you do it more and more, the same way you train your muscles, you are training your brain. You're training this, I don't know if it's probably too big brain to call it neuroplasticity or something like that, but maybe it is, I'm not sure. But you are undoubtedly, I have progressed in my way of being extremely tired and still doing cognitive tasks with high proficiency. It's drastically changed. And so now it's a thing that I almost enjoy on the tail end of my workouts, being like, all right, how locked in can I get? And can I do this math without, I first started out, I used to use my calculator. Now I try purposely to make all my math in my brain just for the sake of challenging myself. Yes. And it is an extension of the workout to have to document it properly and use that fine motor skill and that function and all those things. So talk to me about that process, because that was an initial, like a thing that I was like, oh my God, to now it's a thing that I look forward to when I do my workouts.
Yeah. And you'll hear me say over and over again, scoring the workout is part of the workout. And that's exactly why. And that's where, again, we start differentiating between what works for the general population versus what works for firefighters. And everything I'm trying to do is challenge you in the gym in such a way that you have access to it on the fire ground. So whether it's the dexterity rating, so yeah, dexterity, fine motor skills as you get a higher heart rate and call it tunnel vision, that there's all these terms for this phenomenon of the sympathetic response to stress. You have to take this pen now, and in these little boxes you have to write the numbers, right? It's like, oh man, I got to really focus on this. Or in terms of cognitive function, you got to do just some basic math that when your heart rate's 170 doesn't feel like basic math. But imagine being on the fire ground. Imagine that you've got to tie a bowline when your heart rate is 170, or you've got to make a hose coupling and you got to get the threads lined up and your heart rate's 170, or you've got to do a radio transmission, in a really serious situation, and you've got to be very clear and concise in how you're communicating on the radio. That requires cognitive function. So, all this stuff, and I just love it, and I geek out about it, and it's really fun for me when I do see the light bulb come on, because it's not uncommon. And again, I come back to Recruit Academy because we did this for years and years and years, and of course they were just not going to say anything, but you could just see the look on their face, like, what is he having us do? Like, this is weird. But then they get out there, and then whether it's figuring out the coaching cues, for their exercises, or cueing into the value of a movement rating, a dexterity rating, a focus rating. It's really fun to see when the light bulb comes on around these things.
Yeah. And I would challenge anyone that has never done something similar to this. Do a real significant circuit or some sort of aerobic workout, strength training, something like that really gets your heart rate going, and then try to do some basic cognitive function. You will be absolutely floored with the degradation of your cognitive function. Like, if you would have told me it was what it was, I would have said whatever. And I think that's because a lot of the functions that I do or we do in that state, like, are pretty much a muscle memory thing. Oh, force a door. I could force a door blindfolded, in the dark or whatever. It's like, but like, now I have to make a good tactical decision as an officer, or a senior firefighter that's making decisions. Am I still in the right, correct mind's eye to do that if I'm not prepared? And like I said, I would challenge anyone, do a circuit and then print off a math sheet and just try to do basic math. It'll blow your mind how much it is a difficult problem. It is crazy. It is quite a thing. And without a mechanism to add that to your program, say like a scoring sheet like Ryan has, it just is a complete deficiency that you're not going to catch up on, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, whether we're talking about managing intensity or movement quality, or some of this more subjective stuff like dexterity and fine motor skills, if you're not training that at a high frequency, and then you get into something at work that just the bell hits and now you're in it, you can't play catch up on that. You're not going to have access to the training components versus now. And you could even maybe speak to this. You've been doing this for 8 weeks. How difficult is it going to be for you on a call or in training to now just start accessing this stuff, because you've been doing it literally every day for 8 weeks? You know what I mean?
For sure. And it also is this compounding effect of, getting the skills to ride the energy wave and make sure that you always stay in a place where you're in cognitive control.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's the kind of and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like, at least in my journey, that has been the next level of not working myself. Like, I know exactly where the cognitive fall off is, and I'm going to work right to that point and then just hold myself at that line, because I know that it's detrimental to me to push past that, unless you're in the dire life safety, whatever, to push past and give it all you have. I actually want to work right up to that line, right to the point that I can still make clear decisions and then hold that line, right? That's where I've tried to be.
Yep. Not only do you know where that line is, you know how to actively recover, even if it's for 5-10 seconds. And again, these different training method of the madness, you're experiencing these different interval training protocols for just this reason. You're getting a real feel for how your body responds to these different challenges to your system, and you're learning to optimize your recovery as absolutely quickly as possible to now get back to work and perform at a high level.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely correct. And so when we think about a firefighter navigating this like fitness journey, right? Me specifically, or just anyone on the world.
Yeah.
What are the core tenets that have to exist for success? Like obviously you have this program that's built perfectly out and it's super wonderful. And I use it like a prescription on a daily basis. And that's awesome. But imagine you're someone that doesn't have that resource, or you're trying to do this on your own. Like, what do I need to include at the very bare minimum to not like, what's the most effective? What's the best bang for my buck to get by, I guess?
Yeah. So I like to describe this in a way that I hope firefighters can relate to. And if you go to any emergency incident, you're going to have an incident action plan. And that includes a size up, strategy, tactics, tasks, after action reports. These are these frameworks that we use in our firefighting always. Think about that applied to any fitness program. So without any dogma, without any specific, type of fitness, to me, there just has to be some sort of a plan, whatever that plan is. And then at the beginning of that plan, some sort of a size up, some sort of a baseline needs assessment, fitness assessment, some sort of a starting point so that you know where you're starting. And then in terms of any plan, there's a strategy. So whatever that strategy is based on your goals, if you're going into a bodybuilding competition, that's different than the strategy that you would use for firefighter fitness. Not to say that there's not value there, it's just different. So you're still choosing a strategy that supports your goals. And then within any strategy, there's tactics. And for firefighters, to me, it boils down to 4 main tactics, and not to oversimplify it, but hey, is there some element of strength training? Because firefighters need to improve strength. Is there some element of mobility, active recovery that really treats recovery as it should? Some element of aerobic training. There's a lot of conversation around zone 2 that should be plugged in strategically as part of the plan. And I like to tack more flexibility and recovery onto the end of that because that's just an efficient way to do it. And then I believe that all firefighters need some high intensity metabolic conditioning to mirror the environments that we work in. So whatever that conditioning looks like in the context of this program, and then exercise selection supports all of that. And then I get, again, scoring the workout as part of the workout. So in simple terms, just 5 steps. It's, hey, there's a program that includes a size up. There's some sort of a plan. There's types of workouts that are plugged into that support the plan. The exercises support the workouts, and you're just kind of breaking it down into smaller pieces to support your training and your goals.
Mm-hmm. So let's go to the other side of the coin. I think the fire service has one problem more than the other, and we'll see if you agree with this. But I think most people are like, let's work out. Yeah. And then you're like, and let's eat right. And they're like, whoa, right? Yeah. I think that like the fire service in general is on board with working out, most of us.
Yep.
The fire service in general is not so on board with healthy eating choices. Right. It would be my experience. Right. So let's break down a little bit into what I've been doing, what we've been kind of working, what you've been encouraging me to do and helping me along the way to do, how it's went, and then where we are now and kind of what we're hoping to improve into the future.
Yeah.
Hey guys, if you could do me a favor and just follow the podcast on whatever service you're using now, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anything else, makes a huge difference for the show. And if you follow the show on social media, like the posts, give them a share. It's an easy thing for you to do. It makes a massive difference for us. I really, really appreciate you listening to the show. This podcast is brought to you by Hikes Boots. And you can tell a lot about a brand by the way they choose to advertise. And Hikes didn't ask me to say anything specific. They sent me a couple pairs of boots. They sent me their Fire Eagle Air and their Fire Eagle Extreme. These are 2 different pairs of structural firefighting boots. And they're great. They both are a little bit unique. The Air is a traditional pull-up boot. The Extreme is a lace-up boot. And I've said this before, but I was skeptical of the lace-up boot. But wow, it's like, wearing fire boots from the future. I mean, they're so comfortable. It's a single grab handle that you pull up. It tightens around your calf, independently tightens around your foot as well. So supportive, so comfortable. If you want more information, check it out at hikesusa.com. That's HAIXUSA.com, or check the show notes for the direct link. This episode is brought to you by Ragaku Analytical Devices, aka Ragaku. These are the folks that have been perfecting the 1064 nanometer ramen longer than a lot of us have even been doing hazmat. And they just launched their new 4th generation handheld analyzer. It's called the Icon X, and it's built specifically for real world things that hazmat teams deal with every day. We're talking about dirty powders, mixed materials, dyes, colors, all the things that make other instruments so angry. And the 1064 nanometer laser means reduced fluorescence, so you get fast, reliable chemical ID in under a minute. And so you're not just staring at this thing wondering why you didn't pay attention at the last training. And so this isn't just a new platform. It's not just an upgrade. This is a whole new toolbox. It supports new accessories, including standoff analysis. You can get the answers without getting too close to the problem. And if you want an analyzer that's been evolving right alongside the hazmat world, check out Ragaku's newest ramen at ragakuanalytical.com, or check the show notes. Back to the show.
So again, coming down to nutrition, for me, there's never any dogma. You will never hear me say, we got to do keto, or we got to do vegan, or just whatever. Like, whatever people want to do, first of all, and different people have different needs, and our bodies react differently to different things. So no hard line on a specific type of nutrition. But I do believe if we were to say, let's call it performance nutrition, I just think there's some really basic tenets that apply to performance nutrition. One is optimizing, prioritizing high quality protein. Staying hydrated is going to be part of that. Do you have to get into counting calories and all that stuff? No, I don't think you do, but it helps to know, if you're driving a big Ford F-250 versus maybe a smaller vehicle, how much fuel is it going to take? It helps to know that and to inform that. Processed foods versus unprocessed foods, natural whole foods, vegetables. There's just the basic tenets of performance nutrition that I think all of us can agree are part of a healthy eating plan. And so if you and I have a conversation, and again, this would apply to any firefighter, if you and I have a conversation around, hey, what are your body composition goals? What are your performance goals? Okay, great. That informs me at a very basic level what I need to come up with in terms of a nutrition plan for you in terms of calories. And you and I have talked about gaining weight, losing weight, recomposition, all the nuances of pulling the levers to dance around that. But it doesn't have to be that complicated. It's pretty basic in terms of the nuts and bolts of it. And then, okay, let's just say for the sake of discussion, around 2,500 calories. I have a general sense of how much food I eat to achieve that. All of my meal planning starts with my protein. Hey, what's my protein? Oh, I'm having spaghetti tonight. Great. Your protein's your meatballs or your ground beef. Oh, I'm having chicken parmesan. Okay, great. Well, chicken's your protein. And you just kind of go from there, just so you're aware of it and you're mindful of really prioritizing your protein. And then we've talked about carbs and fats. And, to me, as long as your calories are on point and you're on point with your nutrition, are there ways to cycle carbohydrates? Are there strategies to cycle calories based on training intensities throughout the week? Yes. Is that necessary to have a very basic healthy nutrition plan? No.
Mm-hmm. And so that has been, for sake of reference, for anyone following along with the journey, I have branched out a little bit, but basically, I eat chicken thighs and 90-second rice packets. And that might sound miserable to some people, but in my world, in my life, I couldn't be happier. I'm totally fine with what you would call mono dieting, right? Which is basically the same food every day.
Yep.
I'm so busy. I'm constantly doing something. The idea that every Sunday I make about 15 pounds of chicken thighs on the Blackstone. I chop it up and put it in the fridge. And then I have a food scale and I scoop my 400 grams of chicken on it. And I throw a 90-second right pouch in the microwave and I eat my meal. And I made it in 4.5 minutes. And that, like, to somebody else that might sound miserable. To me, I love the simplicity of it, and I just want the macros, and it's somehow, I mean, I'm 9 weeks in of basically just eating that and like happy as a clam. I'm fine. And I know that to some other people that might seem insane. But I don't see a reason to stop anytime soon. One thing I have done recently is I got these like very high fiber tortillas, and I've started eating those because I talked to Megan Lautz a couple weeks ago, and she was talking about the importance of adding fiber into your diet more readily. So I've been trying to actively add more fiber. And so that's an easy way, because those tortillas have some crazy, like almost 20 grams of fiber per tortilla. So it's like, but I'm sure this part of the podcast is boring the hell out of everyone. Listen to me, what I eat. But I will say that like food prep is the game changer for it all. It's so easy to make excuses when every time you have to eat, you have to do a big task. But when you take a little time and prepare to make good, healthy choices throughout the week, all of a sudden you remove that barrier to entry to making the right choice. And instead of like, I don't have very much time, I guess I'll just like call Grubhub, or I guess no one calls a delivery store. It's not the 90s anymore. They use their phone and they use the app to call but when you can just go into the fridge and grab some chicken you already made, or some food that is readily available, it makes those easy, healthy food decisions a little bit easier. That's what I've found, at least. And I'm fortunate that I am a person that is capable to just eat the same thing all the time and be totally fine. But I don't know. That's probably not like Ryan often talks to me about having a sustainable diet, or like a sustainable lifestyle.
Yes.
And so I'm sure he cringes a little bit when he hears that all I eat is chicken thighs and rice every single day, all day. But I'm not wanting for anything. That's what like some people from the outside say, like, oh man, that sounds horrible. I'm like, it doesn't even bother me in the slightest. So maybe this is the rest of my life. I mean, I had my anniversary last week, and I went out to a steakhouse and had a meal and whatever, but then I went right back to my chicken and rice, and I'm totally fine. And, but biggest thing is, as soon as you enter that space where you are like cognizant of your food, all of a sudden everything is a thing you're cognizant of, which is a total paradigm shift from just like walking through your day like the Cookie Monster, and anything that is available to eat, you just throw in your mouth, right? All of a sudden you're like, oh, why would I eat that? I don't want to eat that. That's bad for me, right? And you end up, over time, then you don't want, the more you eat correctly for longer, the less you want to go back to eating bad, right? At least that's been my experience. Maybe after everyone has to suffer through me breaking down how I only eat chicken and rice, break down maybe how somebody could achieve their goals without, and maybe this is a perfect time to talk about the net scoring system, which is a great system. Because it really is an 80-20 principle, and the net scoring system is a super easy way to do that. And I know we talked about the net scoring system on our last podcast, but now I've actually been utilizing it for the last, 8 weeks or something with a lot of success. So for maybe somebody that doesn't want to just eat chicken and rice every day, talk to me about the net scoring system and the concept of the 80-20 principle.
Yeah. And so that's the thing. And you're a great example, and it's just really important for everyone to understand we're all different. We're all different, and it's not one size fits all. It's just not. Yes, there's some basic, as we talked about, some basic strategies that really help everyone. Like I said, protein, hydration, some of just the real basic stuff. But beyond that, there's so many strategies that any individual could choose to follow to take steps towards meeting their goals. And in some cases, it might just be simply doing less. So if you're an individual that has 3 IPAs every day at 600 calories a pop, there's a real easy way to not maybe stop that necessarily, but to decrease the amount that you're doing that. Or if you're someone that, hey, I got to get my Ben and Jerry's in every day, and maybe you're just removing some sugar into your, without even getting into these more kind of adding this or following a plan, you're literally just removing some of the stuff that is not helping you succeed in meeting your goals. So that'd be even a basic step one is, hey, what can you look at removing, not in a way that's depriving you, but in a way that is manageable for you to start taking steps towards your goals. And then what are these other strategies that we've talked about around meal planning, or how many days a week are you eating healthy versus how many days are you maybe not worrying about it so much? Like really kind of getting to a point where you understand your strategy. And then once you understand your strategy, then you can start holding yourself accountable for that. And so, you just mentioned, and I'll tell a quick story. So it was in 2011, we were doing a tactical fitness program in the department, and we wanted to evaluate how effective is it? Because like any fire department, it's like something new comes in. Everyone's like, well, you got to show us what the deal is, how does it work? And so we had people sign up for it, and we said, man, how are we gonna track what people are doing? Well, we want to track their nutrition and we want to track their exercise. Okay, cool. So we started. That's where the nutrition exercise tracking system was born. And basically, you wake up with 6 nutrition points. Any choice you make that deviates from your specific strategy, not some other strategy, your strategy, -1. You roll out of bed with 0 exercise points. You get your workout in for the day, 4 points. Partial workout, 2 points. You miss a workout, 0 points. The goal, or the perfect score, is 10 points, obviously. But as you and I have talked, and even sometimes I'm kind of like, Jake, it's okay. Like, loosen up a little bit,
Yeah.
And the goal is 8. The goal is 80%. And so if you really have that one sugar item you like, you could have that every day. And as long as everything else is clean, you're 9 points. Or, hey, I'm going on an anniversary weekend with my wife. I'm not tracking any of this stuff. I'm going nuts. Great. If you score 10 points every day of the week and you have a 1-0, you're still going to be above your 8. So the whole idea isn't to get into this real restrictive planning or making anyone feel like this is beyond what they have access to. For one, both the workout program and the nutrition program should be for them. Like it should be, hey, we have a sense that this is going to work for you based on all that we've talked about in your needs assessment. And okay, we're agreeing that, or we're optimistic that this is what we need to do. Here's how we can track that in a way that's not, too crazy. It's pretty simple. And as you go through it, you start paying attention. And so the story in our fire department, when we first introduced this, I think we only had maybe 10 people that were really all in on the program, but dude, everyone else is watching, everyone else is paying attention. And the first person to bring that brownie to their mouth, -1, -1, like it just became this whole gamification.
Yeah.
And man, 20 years later, I'm not saying this was the only catalyst, but it was certainly kind of in this window of time when the department I retired from, what it was 20 years ago in terms of the health and fitness culture, it has come so far to the point that our newest members wouldn't even know what it would be like to not cook a healthy dinner, or they couldn't imagine a scenario where they didn't work out together on duty. That's just how far it's come through some of these incremental changes in the culture over the years.
And one of the things I like about the net scoring system opposed to some of the other fitness programs, like the simplest one to compare it to is Weight Watchers, because it's a point system and stuff like that. But Weight Watchers is so, I haven't done it personally, but my mom did at one point. I'm familiar with the program, but it's very much like this specific item is 2 points, and this specific, it's like, I like the net scoring system because it relies on your conscience to guide you.
Yes.
Hey, what you just ate, was that part of the program or not? And damn well if it was, right? Your heart of hearts knows that brownie was not part of the program, or even something that's less severe. Say, I'm going to have a slice of pizza. It might not be total junk food, but I know that that's not part of the normal healthy eating program in my world. So that's a negative point. But it doesn't rely on some complex matrix of what food is in and what food is out. It's like, what your goals are. If you're sticking to the plan or not. And it's a subjective measure of what you want to accomplish. And in your heart of hearts what the truth is, if you're honest with yourself, right?
And you're encouraged to have fun with it. Like you're encouraged to, I didn't say average 10, average 8. Like that's the whole, and that's the thing I think we can really hit on is progress. And you hear me say this all the time too. Progress, not perfection. It does not require perfection to make progress. It requires consistency. And dude, you have been basically the poster boy of being consistent because, and as you mentioned, we communicate every week. You're like, hey, bro, I'm going to be traveling, or hey, is there some equipment I could substitute out for this? Like, you were proactively seeking strategies to stay consistent. And every time, at every point, there was always a solution to, creating some option for you that maybe wasn't perfect, if we're getting really into the, this is this and this is that, but it didn't have to be perfect because you were consistent in applying just these basic tenets over a period of 8 weeks, and the results speak to that.
Yeah. It really, like, I talked to you the other day about the idea that this has been one of the easiest cuts, or if you call it a cut or workout or whatever you want to call it. I'm losing weight. I'm consistently holding or gaining muscle, and I don't feel particularly strained, right? Which is like what tells you that it's a sustainable program. Because I have done in the past when I did cuts for the calendar.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking like 1,400 calorie days with 2-a-day workouts, and like you're just killing yourself, and it's not sustainable. And the second that the calendar shoot happens, I gain 30 pounds.
Oh,
and I feel very little strain inside of this program, which is, and to say that that is true, which it is, and also see the results that we're having is pretty remarkable. To say, hey, in 8 weeks, I lost almost 20 pounds, and like, it's not really that stressful. I'm pretty much just like, I'm doing the prescription, I'm doing the program, I'm doing what you're asking of me, but like, I'm not like going to bed with a gargling stomach, and I'm not like walking around every single day too sore to move or something like that. It really is a sustainable long-term outlook that like, I'm like, well, I guess could just do this forever, I guess. I mean, it doesn't hurt, which is great, which is what the hope is, what makes a sustainable program for someone.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so important for firefighters. Like, you have to remove roadblocks. We, as firefighters, we have enough roadblocks in our lives in terms of challenges and shift work and sleep deprivation and calls and all the family, all the things. Like, the last thing that's going to help a firefighter succeed in their fitness and nutrition programming is now somehow making something so rigid or so difficult or not sustainable to the degree that they're just not going to do it. They're not going to stick with it. So if something's going to go, that's going to be it, because all these other things, there's just less control of. So that's the whole idea.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about this framework. You alluded to it before in terms of the idea that we have this multi-phased approach. Each phase has its own goal. Talk through the ones that we've completed. Phase 1, we've already completed. We're into phase 2, and then what we'll see going forward into phase 3.
Yeah. So in phase 1, I really wanted to give you access to kind of lower impact training. The way to do that was to have longer intervals. So the 3 intervals that we focused on were 4 time, which is basically a full 20 minutes, as many rounds as possible, which is also a full 20 minutes, and then 4-minute rounds, which that is an extended period of time. For anyone that hasn't done kettlebell cleans and squats for 4 minutes, it feels like a long time at a certain point.
It does.
And those are not like classic HIIT workouts. Like, 2/3 of the time you're doing those workouts at moderate intensity. So it's important to note that this is moderate and high intensity training for the first 5 weeks. The intervals are longer to really build a base of muscular strength and endurance. Now we're in phase 2. The 2 big changes are 90-30 and each minute on the minute. And what we're trying to introduce in this phase 2, now we're decreasing the time. We're starting to add a little bit more in terms of explosive movements, but over a longer period of time in terms of a more intermediate adaptation. And then in phase 3, you're going to start getting into 30-second intervals, more classic 20-10. And the idea there now is you're loading heavier, and you're doing more explosive movements, more simple movements, where the movements before were a little more complex in terms of biomechanics and whatnot. And again, my goal is that at the end of phase 3, now you've gone from building this foundation of muscular strength and endurance. You've had this intermediate kind of transition, this kind of strength window, and then now you're going to shift into this more training for power. And at the end, through your Firefighter Tactical Fitness Assessment, we're going to just see, all of the ways that you've built those attributes that we need, endurance, strength, and power as firefighters, with an emphasis on mobility and active recovery throughout the whole entire process to really optimize your outcome at the end of this 16-week course.
Mm-hmm. So this just came into my brain as a conversation I had the other day. Ironically, this was a conversation I had with James Gearing, the host of the Behind the Shield podcast.
Oh, yeah.
That podcast will actually come out after this podcast. So you're going to get a sneak preview. But
Shout
I was
out to
talking
James.
to him.
Hey, James.
James is awesome. He's the man.
Yep.
In talking with James, he is particularly passionate about ongoing fitness standards in the fire service.
Yeah.
And so a little bit of a hot button topic. Some people are very, very against it. Some people are very, very for it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but I am interested to know, obviously from your experience actually working as a training chief and now as a retired, but still very much in the firefighter fitness world.
Yeah.
What do you think about the pros and cons of a ongoing firefighter physical fitness mandate or, requirement?
I just think we have to be real careful with that, because the fact of the matter is, let's just look at what we do know. So 70% of the fire service in the US is overweight or obese. Like, that's just a fact. Or at least that's what the data shows over the years. So to just overnight somehow impose this very rigid fitness standard, I just don't think we're setting ourselves up for success. In a perfect world, do I think we should have a fitness standard? Of course I do. And do I think firefighters should be fit? Of course I do. Do I think that setting these fitness standards as a first step or a step in any department, I don't think that is the way to set us up for success. I think that we need to meet firefighters where they are and then have a very comprehensive system in place to help them get to where they need to be. And so in my mind, Jake, if you have a really great training division and you are, you're pulling hose, you're throwing ladders, you're doing all of these things throughout regular firefighter training that this job demands, you shouldn't need a fitness assessment. And the reason I say that, and again, this is after 10 years in the training division, and I've personally had to write performance improvement plans. I've had to put these things in place. If there's a fitness element that is falling short, it will reveal itself in the firefighting. I would much rather have a standard around hose deployment, ground ladder deployment, firefighter survival, rig to door evolutions, things like that now you can say, hey man, like, we need you to do this to the standards of the department. Otherwise you're unsafe, the crew's unsafe, people are unsafe. To me, we do that. In my department, we had that at Recruit Academy. Like, that's just something we do in the fire service anyways. And then in terms of fitness and wellness, I would love to see, like any sports organization, you have this multi-pillar fitness program that includes the medical side of it. Not only medical screening, but also really robust return to work, similar to players returning to play. That includes a work hardening period. It's not, okay, you're clear, go do max work. So that's a different thing. Nutrition, fitness coaching, mental behavioral health, data collection, and even looking at the WFI, it provides a really great framework for us to do these things as a department. And even the conversations I'm hearing around the new update for the WFI, I think they're really trying to close the gap between seeing what we could or should be doing and actually accessing that and implementing it. So I guess that's my long-winded way of saying I don't think that is the best way to go to actually achieve the outcome we want. And I'll real quick tell the story of my own department. I got hired in 1996 in the Bellingham Fire Department. I would say well over 60% of the firefighters were older. They were towards the end of their careers. They hadn't necessarily adopted a fitness mindset in their lives. 3 people started making fitness a priority, and they started leading by example and setting up frameworks for either entry-level fitness testing. We did fitness testing twice a year, even when I got hired. None of that was mandatory. There were some monetary incentives attached to that. And then, so you could see, like, so there was, you know, standards that people would be measured against, but it wasn't punitive. So if they fell short of that, maybe they didn't get the monetary incentive, but there was no punitive act for that. And then again, 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, of this really supportive framework, an administration that was supportive of fitness in a way that was non-punitive, and then a department that's now very intentional about asking interview questions. Hey, describe to us why fitness is important for firefighters. Tell us a little bit about your specific fitness programming so that we understand that it really is part of your life. And then in Recruit Academy, if we saw a fitness problem in Recruit Academy, and because it impacted their firefighting abilities, those two things are not separate, that person did not graduate. So there's other ways that a fire department can implement fitness standards successfully without making it punitive, without really having a hard line on it, and really developing a culture of support above all else.
There's a couple ways I want to go with it.
Yeah, let's go.
I love your framework of the idea of making it less of a fitness initiative and more of a ability to do the job initiative, right? It's like ultimately, if we have a framework for training that is robust enough, we don't need to test your physicality. We can just see if you can do the job, right?
Yeah.
And there is a little bit of wiggle room for someone to stand back and not be involved, but it just depends on how well your training department is having people be involved in training, right?
Yes.
So on the flip side of this, you already pointed at this in your time in Bellingham, but I know you have interview questions in regards to health, wellness, fitness, how, like the kind of the tactical athlete mindset. And I know you have an academy in which you are pressing them and testing them and seeing how well they react to that. There's a big debate in the fire service in regards to entrance exams and how difficult is an entrance exam supposed to be? Is this supposed to be, you know, Navy SEALs? Is this supposed to be like, you know, come one and all, everyone can do the job? And there's kind of a gradient scale between the two. In your experience, not only in the training division, but also in fitness coaching, what's the base level that's needed to build upon? Or is there a value? Or is it like, bring us your clay and we can mold it? Or where are we?
Yeah. And so, you know, and that's because it's so difficult to come up with a test that's really going to hit that sweet spot between, yes, this person is physically capable of doing the job, but we're not limiting access to folks that might also be capable of doing the job. So again, coming back to my own department, I think maybe we even talked about this last time. We basically eliminated all front end roadblocks to seeing candidates. And we got to a point before I retired where we're doing what we called speed interviews with 400 people.
Wow.
There was no firefighter requirement. There was no EMS requirement. There was no, you know, of course they had to pass the CPAP, but there was no other fitness requirement. And then they went through a panel interview and then chiefs interviews, and then ultimately went through a pretty stringent interview process. And then we would pick who we felt were the highest qualified candidates, often 12 at a time. And then you get into academy, and this is where it's so important to have systems in place. So if kind of, as you alluded to, well, if there's a gap in the system, or if the department doesn't have a really solid framework in place, then maybe some of these things aren't going to work. But if you've kind of pre-planned and you've taken on the responsibility as the department to cast as wide a net as you can to just get the best people in the door, and then on this timeline, evaluate them appropriately. And again, we had probably a 20% attrition, let's just say, on average, that didn't make it through academy. And Okay, well, that's 20. But once they did get through academy, very rarely, very rarely did those employees not pass probation.
Hmm.
And so it's this systematic approach, and because if you, let's just say on the other end of the spectrum, we're going to come up with this badass physical screening, and only 20% of all candidates are going to pass it. Well, you might get someone that just kicks ass physically, but maybe they're missing all of these other intangibles that are so important to the work that we do, versus let's try to find all of those intangibles, and then before someone's off probation, we know for a fact that they can do every aspect of this job. To me, that's a better way to get the best firefighters, as long as you're committed to the process.
Would you hire extra people knowing that people would not pass?
No, because it was never our intent to know that they wouldn't pass. We always hoped for that everyone would, but it was just kind of on average that's just kind of, sometimes it was more, sometimes it was less. That's just kind of the average. And but that was never the intent. Like, we never just like, oh, we're losing 20%. That's just kind of the way it kind of went a lot of the time. But we were very, very happy with the candidates that graduated.
We so I've been in talks to maybe go do an academy, and I'm going out, like, this is another thing we'll talk about, but I'm going out to training in a week or so to go to 40-hour weeks for a few months to teach a hose and nozzle rollout for the department. But I had always joked, but also thought it was a really brilliant idea to like always hire one extra person than you would intend. And then like on day one, be like, there's 21 of you, only 20 of you will graduate, whoever's at the bottom of and just everyone just scared shitless for the entire,
oh my gosh.
I love the idea of that because I'm hyper competitive, and like I would be so motivated in that framework. Yeah. It's obviously not a great workplace for anyone to be in, to just be sitting on the axe every day. But we have historically at my department struggled with the idea that we invest so much money to onboard people that by the time they're inside the system, it's like, oh man, we're already 40 grand deep in them. And because of that, unfortunately, you can always pick out the people that were the problem in the academy, and they always are the people that are the problem on the street, right? You're like, that one's going to be a problem. Cut 2-3 years later, and they're either off the job, or they get someone fired, or they get fired, or some problem. The academy does an unbelievable job of pulling the weeds if you're willing to pull the weeds, right?
Yeah.
But you have to have the balls as a training staff to make the call.
Yeah. And $40,000 becomes a real bargain.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know what I mean? Like, when you look back and there's a lawsuit or just whatever, even what you invest in someone that sticks around for 2 years when everyone knew that maybe it wasn't a good fit, let's just say, 40,000 is a bargain.
So let's talk about this transition, right? Obviously, normally I work a 56-hour week. My schedule is crazy, so I won't even try to explain it to somebody that wouldn't understand it. But it all ends up being 10, 24-hour shifts a month, which is pretty standard. But now we're looking at all this plan that we have, and I will go from that 56-hour week. 7 days from now, I will switch to a 40-hour week, roughly 8 to 4 or 8 to 5 kind of schedule. How does that change your workout planning for me and the phases that we see in this next, 8 weeks or 7 weeks at that point?
Yeah. And so it comes back to the training cycle I was describing. So we've been on a training cycle around your shift schedule. And because your shift schedule is it's not even every training cycle is the same. It's different this week than it is this week. So we had to get real creative around your programming so that you're hitting all of these different attributes that we talked about in the context of this period of time, so that you maintain the progress that we're shooting for and that we've seen up to this point. Now I'm excited for you because I made this same adjustment in my career, and dude, it was like I've been wearing dirty glasses for 10 years, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I can see so clear. You're getting sleep, and you're going to be training hopefully in the mornings before you go into work. You're going to pack your lunch and know that you've got your chicken and your quick rice readily available.
Oh man.
But man, so basically you're now going to be on a 7-day training cycle. You'll do moderate, and then you'll do your aerobic training, you'll do another moderate, you'll do some recovery, you'll hit your high intensity day on Fridays ideally, and then you'll recover through the weekend, and then you'll start over. And that's how your training cycle will map out.
Mm-hmm. And I'm excited too. Obviously life is chaos and there's not a lot of consistency, but now for the first time in a decade or so, I will work a 40-hour work week and I'll be able to work out every day, similar time. I'll get sleep at night. I'll eat my meal that I want to eat every day and not like 10 days a month, kind of try to eat around whatever they're eating at the firehouse and try to make my best meal. So I do feel, and I should be on a 40-hour week for the rest of the training cycle that we do together. And so the second half could be like an explosive finish because I might have all these consistencies. Not that I haven't been consistent already, but it's going to literally be like concrete consistency for the rest of the time, theoretically, because I should have all the ability to do that. And so I'm excited about it. I'm excited for, the second half of this thing. So as we kind of look to maybe start closing out, I do want to hit on the big core concept that I've started to unlock, and I want to get your thoughts on it and then give you the opportunity to give me some quiz questions if you have any. Obviously we check in all the time, but there is probably some things that you want to know about the program and what I've been learning, what I've been adopting. But the big thing is this tactical fitness mindset. And like, if I'm being very honest with you, prior to working with you, the tactical athlete was like a big eye roll to me.
Yeah.
And it's not any fault of any individual, but I think that sometimes it's adopted in this kind of, I don't want to say it because you're not this at all, but like almost this like douchey, like male bravado thing. And it's not what it really is, as I've come to understand. But I kind of rejected it and distanced myself from that because I didn't want to be seen as like the gym bro, I'm so cool tactical athlete. But what I've come to discover, and I'm interested to hear you expand on it more, which is this idea of understanding that my livelihood and my trade is dependent on my ability for my body to perform in a certain way. And so it would be silly for me not to treat my body as a tool and fuel that tool and train that tool to be able to accomplish the goals I have inside of my trade and inside of the fire service. And so that is really what it means to me to be a fire service tactical athlete. It means when I go out, and this is the thing that I've really started to adopt more, is like when I go out and I see someone, making a bad eating decision down the thing. And it's not a judgment, but I cannot make that decision and understand I've made the decision to do this and prioritize my health and prioritize my fitness. And it's because I want to be the person that I say that I am, which is a firefighter that is a high performer. And so because of that, my life is different than some other people's, and that's totally fine because that's the life I want to have. And this is how I strive to get it. So maybe that's a convoluted way to say what you'll probably say in a lot better words, but break me down into the true identity of what it means to be a firefighter tactical athlete.
Yeah. And so there's two sides of the coin. And in just really simple terms, an athlete is anyone that participates in an endeavor that requires some element of fitness and skill. Now that's badminton, that's surfing, that's, whatever, but certainly includes firefighting in simple terms. And so the reason, a little bit of background. So I went to WSU, I got my degree in exercise science, and I joined the volunteer fire department at about the exact same time. So everything they're teaching us about athletes. They're using the word athlete in teaching exercise science to us. And I just also happened to be working in the equipment room for the football team back then. And so I see exactly what the athletes have access to. Fitness coaches, skills coaches, nutrition counselors, athletic trainers, physical therapists, school tutors, like this whole team of people set up to help them stay healthy so that they perform their best on game days. And also I'm learning all the science behind human performance in college. And now I'm working with the fire department. And dude, for me, it couldn't have been more crystal clear that everything I'm observing with these football players, everything I'm learning about exercise science, 100% applies to firefighters. I mean, there's no way from a human performance standpoint that it doesn't, like it in terms of benefit. So, okay, if we can agree that, you know, everything that supports human performance for football players, you know, the World Cup just wrapped up, you know, for these elite soccer players, wouldn't that also benefit firefighters? And if individual firefighters buy into that idea, so you and I have been, for this whole time, been talking about frameworks for firefighters in terms of approaching fitness. If you look no further than how athletes approach their, you know, they've got a general physical preparedness phase, they've got a specific physical preparedness phase, they've got sport specific, you know, firefighters can adopt kind of these similar approaches to their trainings throughout the year just to continue to build their fitness levels in a way that has worked in another you know, entity for all this time. And again, I know we don't have seasons and all this stuff. We could geek out about that on another podcast, but I'm speaking in general terms. And look at, more importantly than that, if we were to embrace the athlete approach to firefighting as a fire service, which means all the budget dollars were funneled to that, all the management decisions, all these frameworks, dude, it would be a game changer. It would the sudden cardiac death statistics would change, hopefully even the cancer statistics, mental health, certainly the overweight and obesity stats we just talked about. If the fire service as a whole started providing the same frameworks to the fire service and firefighters that athletes receive, and again, medical testing, return to work, fitness training, skills coaching, nutrition, mental health, data tracking, it would be a game changer. So for me, and I get it, you know, some people are turned off by it. Maybe not everyone views themselves as an athlete. It's not meant to be elitist. It's not meant to be judgmental. It's meant to provide a framework, just a very simple framework that an individual could grab onto for their own lifestyle and training approach. And certainly the fire service, if not individual fire departments, could just look at and know exactly how to build out their fitness and wellness programs.
Mm-hmm. So with that, let the people know where they can find more information about what you're doing. Obviously, they can keep following my social media and your social media to keep tracking this like hazard class fat to fit journey, which we're halfway done with now.
Yep.
And then obviously at the end, on the tail end of this, we'll do a recap podcast and we'll talk about the whole journey of all 16 weeks. And at that point, we'll probably get a lot more into the weeds about what we discovered, what we learned along the way. But for today, let the people know where they can find out more information about you and what you're doing.
So the easiest way to find me is at firefighterpeakperformance.com. That's my website. Everything's on there. On social media, Firefighter Peak Performance on Instagram, Ryan Provencher on LinkedIn, Firefighter Peak Performance on Facebook. Pretty easy to find out there.
Yeah, that's perfect. Ryan, it's always a pleasure. And thank you for all the work you're doing to help me personally. And thank the work that you're doing to help the fire service in general be a little bit fitter and a little bit more prepared to do the job that we have to do.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you.